September 12, 1954, 8:43 p.m. Bumpy Johnson sat at his mother's dinner table on 141st Street, surrounded by 23 family members celebrating his cousin Jerome's 30th birthday. Fried chicken, collard greens, laughter, love. What Bumpy didn't know was that Jerome had just accepted $10,000 from the Luciano crime family to set him up for assassination, tonight, in this house, in front of his own mother. Jerome knew the hitmen were parked 3 blocks away. He knew the signal. When he walked to the window and opened the curtains at exactly 9:15 p.m., they'd move in. 4 armed men, suppressed weapons, in and out in 90 seconds. Jerome had the money hidden in his apartment, $10,000, more than he'd make in 5 years working at the Bronx rail yard. All he had to do was open those curtains. But Jerome made one mistake, one critical, deadly mistake. He forgot that Bumpy Johnson knew everything that happened in Harlem, including family betrayals. And what Bumpy did next would become the most talked-about moment in his family's history for the next 70 years.
To understand what happened at that dinner table, you need to know where Bumpy Johnson stood in September 1954. He was 49 years old and controlled Harlem's numbers racket with absolute authority. For 20 years, he'd built an empire that moved $6 million annually and protected Harlem from outside exploitation. But Bumpy wasn't just a gangster. He was family, blood family. Born in Charleston, South Carolina, he'd moved to Harlem in 1919 with his mother, Margaret, and his extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins who'd escaped the Jim Crow South looking for dignity and opportunity. By 1954, Bumpy had made sure every member of his family was taken care of. His mother lived in a beautiful brownstone on 141st Street near Lenox Avenue. His cousin Jerome worked at the rail yard, a union job Bumpy had secured for him in 1948. Bumpy paid for his niece's wedding in 1952, covered his uncle's medical bills in 1953, sent 3 cousins to Howard University. Bumpy believed in family above everything. Blood was sacred. You protected family. You never betrayed family. That code ran deeper than any criminal enterprise he'd ever built. Jerome Johnson was Bumpy's first cousin. Their mothers were sisters. They'd grown up together in Charleston, played in the same dirt roads, shared the same poverty. When Jerome's father died in 1938, Bumpy paid for the funeral. When Jerome got married in 1947, Bumpy was his best man. When Jerome's son was born in 1950, Bumpy was the godfather. For 20 years, Jerome had watched Bumpy build power in Harlem, watched him negotiate with the Italian mob, watched money flow, watched respect accumulate. And somewhere along the way, Jerome stopped being grateful and started being jealous. By 1954, Jerome was 30 years old, working a blue-collar job, living in a modest apartment in the Bronx, while Bumpy drove Cadillacs and wore $1,000 suits. It ate at Jerome. Every family gathering, every Sunday dinner, he saw Bumpy's success and felt his own failure. That jealousy made him vulnerable, and in August 1954, the Luciano crime family found that vulnerability and exploited it. But there was a problem. Jerome didn't understand that in Harlem, loyalty wasn't just respected, it was monitored. And Bumpy Johnson had eyes everywhere, including inside his own family.
The man who paid Jerome Johnson $10,000 was named Anthony Little Augie Pisano, a capo in the Luciano crime family. Little Augie was 52 years old, 5'8", with slicked-back hair and a vicious temper. He'd killed his first man at 17 and had spent 35 years climbing the ranks of organized crime. By 1954, Little Augie controlled bookmaking operations in the Bronx and parts of Upper Manhattan. But he wanted more. He wanted Harlem.
The numbers racket alone was worth millions annually, and the Italians had been trying to take it from Bumpy Johnson since the 1930s. Dutch Schultz had tried and failed. Frank Costello had tried and backed down. Now it was Little Augie's turn. But Little Augie was smarter than his predecessors. He knew he couldn't beat Bumpy in a straight fight. Harlem's loyalty to Bumpy was impenetrable. So Little Augie decided to go after Bumpy's blind spot, his family. In July 1954, Little Augie's crew started watching Bumpy's relatives. They identified Jerome as the weak link. He was broke, bitter, envious, perfect. On August 10, 1954, two of Little Augie's men approached Jerome outside the rail yard in the Bronx. They didn't threaten him, they just offered him an opportunity. "We know you're Bumpy's cousin," one of them said. "We know you're tired of watching him shine while you struggle. We can change that." They showed Jerome a briefcase, $10,000 in cash. "All you have to do is get Bumpy alone, away from his bodyguards. Tell us when and where. We'll handle the rest. You get the money. You get to watch Bumpy fall, and nobody will ever know you were involved." Jerome stared at the money. His hands were shaking. "Why would I do that? He's family." "Is he?" the man asked. "Because family shares. Family lifts you up. But Bumpy keeps you down. He gives you scraps while he lives like a king. That's not family. That's control." Jerome went home that night and didn't sleep. For 2 weeks he wrestled with the decision. But the jealousy was too strong, the resentment too deep. By August 25th, he'd made up his mind. He met with Little Augie's men and took the briefcase. "There's a family dinner on September 12th, Jerome said quietly. "My birthday at Bumpy's mother's house. He'll be there, relaxed, no bodyguards inside the house, just family." "Perfect. What time?" "Dinner starts at 7. He'll probably stay until 10. I'll signal you when he's in position. I'll walk to the front window and open the curtains. That's when you move." Little Augie's men smiled. They had their setup. They had their inside man. They had their window. What they didn't know was that Jerome's wife, Clara, had overheard the entire conversation from the bedroom. And Clara loved Bumpy more than she loved her own husband, because Bumpy had paid for their wedding, their apartment, and her mother's cancer treatment. On August 26th, Clara called Bumpy and told him everything. What Jerome didn't know was that Bumpy had been knowing about the betrayal for 17 days, and Bumpy had been planning something that would teach Jerome and every member of his family a lesson about loyalty they'd never forget.
Between August 26th and September 12th, Bumpy Johnson moved like a chess master, setting up checkmate. He didn't confront Jerome, didn't change his plans. He acted completely normal, attended the birthday planning meetings, smiled at family gatherings, treated Jerome with the same respect he always had. But behind the scenes, Bumpy was preparing. He met with his top enforcer, Willie the Turk Jackson, and laid out the entire situation. "Jerome's going to signal hitmen at my mother's house during his birthday dinner. 4 shooters from Little Augie Pisano's crew. They think they're walking into an easy hit." Willie's face darkened. "Let me handle Jerome now." "No, I want him to go through with it. I want him to open those curtains. I want him to think he's winning. And then I want to show him and everyone in my family what happens when you betray blood." Bumpy contacted 6 of his most trusted men and positioned them around his mother's block on September 12th. 2 on rooftops, 2 in parked cars, 2 inside a neighbor's apartment, all of them watching the street, all of them armed. He also contacted a police captain he had on his payroll, Captain Robert Harris of the 32nd Precinct, and gave him a heads up about the Luciano hit squad. 4 armed men are going to attempt a home invasion at 527 West 141st Street tonight around 9 p.m. Be there. Catch them in the act. Captain Harris owed Bumpy favors. He agreed. On September 12th at 7 p.m., the family dinner began.
23 people. Bumpy's mother, Margaret, had cooked all day. The house smelled like home, love, tradition. Jerome arrived at 7:15 p.m. with his wife, Clara. He looked nervous, sweating. Clara wouldn't look at him. She knew what he'd done. She knew what was coming. Bumpy greeted Jerome with a hug. "Happy birthday, cousin. 30 years old. You're getting old." Jerome forced a smile. "Thanks, Bump. Thanks for everything." They sat down to eat. Laughter filled the room. Stories, jokes. Bumpy's mother told embarrassing childhood stories about both of them. The family was together, united. But Jerome kept glancing at the clock. 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m., 8:45 p.m. At 9:10 p.m., Jerome stood up, walked toward the front window. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. He could see little Augie's black sedan parked 3 blocks down, waiting. All he had to do was open the curtains. He reached for the cord, and then Bumpy spoke. "Jerome, sit down." Jerome froze, turned around. Bumpy was standing now. His face was calm, controlled, but his eyes were steel. "I said, sit down." The room went silent. Every family member stopped talking, stopped eating. 21 pairs of eyes locked on Jerome. And at exactly 9:12 p.m., Bumpy Johnson revealed the truth that would shatter his family forever.
Jerome stood at the window, hand on the curtain cord, unable to move, unable to breathe. Bumpy walked slowly toward him. No anger, no rage, just cold, calculated control. "I know what you did," Bumpy said quietly. The room exploded with whispers, confused, shocked. Jerome's voice cracked. "Bump, I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." Bumpy's voice cut like a blade. "Don't lie to me in front of my mother. Don't disrespect this family more than you already have." Bumpy's mother stood up. "Ellsworth, what's going on?" "Mama, sit down. You're about to learn something about your nephew that's going to break your heart." Bumpy turned back to Jerome. The entire family was watching now, silent, terrified. "On August 10th, little Augie Pisano's men approached you outside the rail yard. They offered you $10,000 to set me up for assassination. You took the money. You agreed to signal hitmen during tonight's dinner. You were going to let them walk into this house, our mother's house, and kill me in front of 23 family members, including children." Gasps filled the room. Bumpy's mother put her hand over her mouth. Jerome's wife, Clara, started crying. Jerome tried to speak. I didn't. They forced me." "They didn't force you. They paid you. There's a difference. You chose money over blood. You chose jealousy over loyalty. You chose to betray the man who's fed your family, protected your family, and loved you like a brother for 30 years. Jerome collapsed into a chair. His face was in his hands, sobbing. "Those 4 men you were supposed to signal," Bumpy continued, "they're outside right now, waiting for you to open those curtains. But here's what's going to happen instead." Bumpy walked to the window, opened the curtains himself. Outside, 3 blocks down, the black sedan's headlights flicked on. 4 men got out, started walking toward the house. But before they made it 20 feet, 6 police cars surrounded them, sirens, lights, guns drawn. Captain Harris had been waiting. The entire family rushed to the window, watched as little Augie's hit squad was thrown to the ground, handcuffed, arrested. Bumpy let the curtains fall closed, turned back to Jerome. "I've known about this for 17 days. Your wife told me everything. I could have killed you on August 26th, but I didn't. You know why?" Jerome couldn't answer, couldn't even look up.
Because I wanted you to feel what it's like to betray family. I wanted you to live with that decision for 17 days. I wanted you to sit at this table tonight, eat this food, look at these people who love you, and know that you were about to destroy all of it for $10,000. Bumpy's voice rose now, not with anger, with disappointment, with heartbreak. You were my brother, Jerome. I would have died for you, and you sold me out for the price of a used car. Bumpy's mother started crying, his aunts, his uncles. The children looked confused and scared. Bumpy reached into his jacket, pulled out a thick envelope, dropped it on the table in front of Jerome. That's $10,000, the exact amount little Augie paid you. I'm giving it back to you, not because you deserve it, but because I want you to understand something. Money means nothing. Family means everything, and you chose wrong. Jerome looked up. His face was destroyed. Bumpy, please, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. You're done. Bumpy's voice was final. You're not family anymore. You don't come to gatherings. You don't call. You don't ask for help. You're a ghost to us, and if I ever hear that you tried to contact my mother or any member of this family, I'll forget your blood. He turned to the entire room. Everyone here needs to see this, needs to understand this. Loyalty isn't optional, it's sacred. Jerome broke that, and this is the consequence. He gets to live, but he loses everything that matters. Bumpy walked to the door, stopped, looked back at Jerome one last time. Get out of my mother's house. Jerome stood up, shaking, sobbing. He walked toward the door. Clara didn't follow him. She stayed seated. She'd already chosen her side. Jerome walked out into the September night, alone, destroyed. Inside, the family sat in stunned silence for a full minute. Then Bumpy's mother spoke. You did the right thing, Ellsworth. Bumpy nodded. I know, Mama. I know.
By September 13th, 1954, the story had spread through Harlem like wildfire. Bumpy Johnson's own cousin had tried to betray him for $10,000. Bumpy had known for over 2 weeks. He'd set up the hit squad to be arrested, and then he'd banished Jerome from the family in front of everyone. The story became legend within days, not just in criminal circles, but in churches, barber shops, and living rooms across Harlem. People told it as a parable, as a warning. You see what happened to Jerome? That's what happens when you break family trust. Little Augie Pisano's 4 hitmen were charged with conspiracy to commit murder, weapons possession, and attempted home invasion. 3 of them got 15 years. 1 turned state's witness. Little Augie himself was questioned by the NYPD, but never formally charged, though his reputation in the Luciano family was destroyed. By 1956, he'd been demoted to running protection rackets in Newark. He died of a heart attack in 1961, bitter and broken. Jerome Johnson left New York entirely. He moved to Philadelphia with the $10,000.